my topic and the way that the lens that I use was how affordable housing can build up our community. So thinking about the economic impact and thinking about the opportunity for low-income families and how that can generate how that can really help address some of the financial instability that families are facing. One lens to kind of look at why we think about this work is we really need to think about racial equity as we think about affordable housing and how we approach it, and use that and consider that as a potential lens for some of these ideas. So the idea, I guess, that I was looking at was build more affordable housing for low-income individuals and families in a way that, one, maximizes job opportunities for low-wage earners and increases economic opportunity for low-income households. There was, I know that there's been a lot of talk about kind of the, there was a gentleman that I just met recently from Local Initiative Support Corporation. He was the president and CEO that came out here from LISC, Local Initiative Support Corporation. They're one of the largest CDFI groups in the country. For those that don't know, they're going to be setting up a local Tacoma, Seattle office. And one of their major portfolio items is really building affordable housing. And they actually came with some really interesting ideas that was even targeting people on the lower spectrum of folks that earn 30% below AMI, which is a different conversation than I think we've heard of tonight. And I think that that's important because most of the conversation we have around affordable housing is probably more workforce housing or people that have jobs that earn more than $40,000 a year or whatnot. Where you have these other three categories that are in dire need of some strategies and solutions, where you have extreme low income, we need 7,800 units now, we need more 5,490 units at that price range for very low income households, and then we need another 4,000 for low income households. So those kind of that number pales in comparison to what the gap is for affordable housing as compared to those first three categories. And there's no strategy really to provide more affordable housing at that particular range without vastly increasing subsidies. So we need to think about that. But really in thinking about some of the solutions that we have, how do we do things in a way that we're thinking about community ownership, and expanding opportunities for low income, for neighborhoods and for families? How are we thinking about that in aspects of generating wealth and creating jobs, and not just thinking about the household unit, the unit that's being built? And so there's a lot more conversations that we can have in terms of thinking about the leveraged investment that affordable housing makes in different communities. And I'm going to share some examples of that as soon as the slide switches. So some of the challenges right now is how do we bring affordable housing capital to Tacoma? And just, as a teaser, Local Initiative Support Corporation is going to be setting up a local office. But getting the most impact out of a housing dollar. So for example, and in family size units that help families stay together, most of the affordable housing units that we're building are 1 and 2 bedroom units, and those don't really serve the needs of families that are low income in our community. And then rental units for low-income people under $1,000. So thinking about those kinds of solutions to get to the crisis that we have in terms of affordable housing. Because every time we talk about homelessness, somebody brings up affordable housing, but none of the affordable housing strategies seem to be at scale to address the needs for families that are experiencing homelessness. So there's a couple of strategies that I want to share tonight. One is about construction jobs for people who are currently receiving housing assistance. So as we build affordable housing, who gets access to the construction jobs when we're building? The Tacoma Housing Authority and different HUD funding projects have what they call a Section 3 designation, which basically says that those jobs should actually go to people currently receiving housing assistance. And that should be kind of the norm in terms of how we are providing opportunities for people to get into careers when we have a demand in that sector, and just thinking about the kind of impact that that could have if that was a common strategy, where if you have 1,000 families getting out of poverty from housing assistance, that we're receiving housing assistance, that could be as much as $40 million in purchasing power. So thinking about over a 5-year time span of getting people access to those kinds of jobs. But it also frees up a housing voucher dollar. So every time we're able to help someone that's currently receiving housing get into job opportunities, they move forward, but we're also able to free up a housing voucher dollar that we need. Another strategy is providing capital to low-income homeowners to build DADUs, I think is another strategy. So for a number of reasons. One, to prevent displacement. Two, to build assets for low-income homeowners. And it's one strategy that encouraged multi-generational living, and the land is already purchased. So how do you provide, some kind of unique capital opportunities for low-income homeowners to build that kind of unit? Typically lower rents than what the affordable housing market would be, and you can still get 1 and 2 bedrooms out of that. So I don't know if that's kind of a part of one of the strategies. Another one is in San Francisco. They just passed an ordinance that tenant associations for a particular apartment community, they have first right of refusal. So that and what Local Initiative Support Corporation comes in is they will actually fund the tenants to actually purchase the property, and then they own the property, which is another way of generating wealth, addressing the wealth gap, providing opportunity for low-income families to be a part of the process and to address some of the wealth gap issues. And there could also be some unique opportunities to kind of leverage property management things and different job opportunities about maintaining the property and those kinds of opportunities. This is actually from a picture in the Bronx doing a similar thing in their neighborhood that was being gentrified, and they actually had a statement, "Nothing about us without us is for us," which I think that's shown up a couple of times. Another strategy could be bringing derelict homes back to the market. And I know this strategy has been said before, but this has a little bit different twist on it. Instead of trying to take ownership of the derelict property, when I ran some of the numbers of the 130 homes that were in Tacoma, most of them were owned by private. They weren't owned by banks. They weren't owned by, they were owned by individuals. Well, what if there was a contract with those property owners to renovate and to ensure that that was going to be at an affordable rate? So there's maybe some different strategies to kind of think about what that could look like that doesn't require having to take eminent domain or take ownership of the property, but actually, doing something a little bit different. So 5 strategies. Just to consider, just to kind of stretch people's thinking about what other kinds of opportunities there might be. Providing capital for low-income homeowners, construction jobs to people receiving housing, convert large existing properties to tenant ownership, building derelict properties, bring derelict properties back to the market, and throw everything in the kitchen sink at it. So something to that effect. So I spent a little bit more time on the slides than I did my transition, but I hope the ideas kind of help spark some interest for folks on thinking about different ways instead of just only focusing on the affordable housing category, but more of the low income and what kind of strategies could be used in that aspect. Thank you.